Welcome to Secrets Out Idaho. Each week, we let you in on the secrets of Southern Idaho and speak to the people who make it such a unique hidden gem. I'm your host, Connie Stouffer. On this week's episode, we'll hear what happens when you combine a love of adventure with a love of family when we talk to Paul Melni, owner of AWOL Adventure Sports. He'll share what he loves about Idaho and his favorite spots for an adventure, including a few that are literally under the surface. Paul Melni, thank you so much for joining me on Secrets Out Idaho. I'm really excited to chat with you and learn more about you and what you do here in Southern Idaho.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So why don't you start by just telling me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Paul Melni. I first moved here to Idaho in '89 with my parents and went through junior high and high school here in Twin Falls. And shortly after high school, I left the area and traveled around through my 20s and found myself back here in 2010 and now live here with my wife and two sons.
Awesome. So when your family moved here in the late 80s, where did you move from?
We moved from Southern California, but we try not to tell too many people that.
Yeah, you got to keep that a secret.
Yeah, definitely.
What brought your family here?
We have relatives in Buell, and quite frankly, my parents were just sick of the Southern California fast life, and I thought it was the greatest thing that had happened. I think back periodically to what my life would have been, and I can't even comprehend it. Now that we're up here in Idaho.
Did you feel that way when you were in junior high? Because I know sometimes moving when you're a kid is rough. You lose, separated from families and friends and things you grew up with. Or were you just like, yeah, Idaho's awesome when you got here?
Sure. No. I was definitely against the idea as a child. Growing up in the city in Southern California, there's a lot to do, in the beach and whatnot. So I wasn't as appreciative of it as a child. Now, as an adult, and I knew early on in my adulthood that this is where I wanted to live and raise a family and that sort of thing.
Did it take that time when you were in your 20s moving and traveling around? Is that when you realized Idaho is where you wanted to be? Or?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I went back to California for work for a few years and traveled and whatnot. And during that time, I definitely saw the value that was our Southern Idaho area.
And you came back in 2010?
Mm-hmm.
And were you married at the time?
Nope, I got married shortly after that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And so where is your wife from?
My wife is from Jerome. She was...
That's convenient, right? You guys are both from here?
Yeah, it works. It works well. She moved here. Her parents moved her here at a very young age, 1 or 2. And so she's considered Idahoan through and through.
Nice. And you guys own a business together?
We do. So we own AWOL Adventure Sports. We do kayak rentals down out of Centennial Park. And from there, customers can kayak all the way up to Pillar Falls. And when the river is lower, they can portage and make it all the way up to Shoshone Falls. We also own and operate a small scuba diving shop downtown and offer international dive trips a couple times a year.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. And one of our more recent add-ons was a Zipline down in the canyon. So we operate a 4-line Zipline course. The last and largest line is a few hundred feet longer than the Prime Bridge.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And for those who haven't seen the bridge, it's pretty far.
Yeah, the bridge is 1,500 feet, and our longest zip line is over 1,700 feet. So when the wind is coming out of the east, you can get up over 50 miles an hour on that zip line.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you guys open AWOL?
AWOL started 3 years ago with the kayaking. Mm-hmm. And then the second season, we brought on the dive shop. Last year we brought on the zip line, and then this winter we brought on or started managing the ice skating rink downtown.
Which was awesome, by the way. It was super cool.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with it. It was quite the magical moment during the tree lighting ceremony. and we had over 100 people come down. We did, free rentals for that night. And it was just one of those magical Hallmark type moments with the kids ice skating and the tree and the music, and the whole ambiance was great down there.
Yeah, we were down there for that, and my little one's too small to ice skate, but hopefully in the next year or so he'll be big enough. And I was just excited to be down there to see all that, and I wasn't even ice skating, and it was super cool. So.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I haven't done it myself. I wasn't brave enough to get out there, but we facilitated over 800 people during the Christmas break to try out ice skating, a lot of them for their first time. And the fact that it's plastic, and people don't realize it's plastic till they're out there, made it a lot easier for, if they did fall down, or the fact that it just goes slower made it a lot easier for beginners.
That's awesome. So what inspired you guys to open AWOL 3 years ago?
It all just sort of fell into place. While I was working in California, I was doing guided kayaking tours and teaching scuba diving. And after I moved up here to Idaho and was going to college, I was teaching scuba diving on the side. And the opportunity came up for a bid on the kayak rentals down the canyon. And my wife and I jumped at it. It was right up our alley. Mm-hmm. And we always knew we wanted to have a dive shop here in town and start doing international dive travel. But when that came, we kind of put the dive shop idea off to the side and jumped at the opportunity. It was the best thing we could have done.
Well, I've just been hearing so many great things about the ziplining, the kayaking, and I didn't even realize you guys were doing the international dive trip. So tell me more about that, because that sounds really exciting for people.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I want to look into it.
Twice a year we lead international tours. Our next trip coming up is in December. We'll be taking 16 divers to the island of Palau in Micronesia.
Wow.
To dive the world famous Jellyfish Lake and a couple of World War II shipwrecks down there, some Japanese ships. Yeah. And then in the spring we'll be going to Belize. So we tried to tailor the trips for wintertime. We'll go to a further, more exotic destination, a little bit more expensive, meant for couples kind of thing. And then over spring break, we do a trip to, Mexico, Central America, a lot less expensive trip for families. So we just got back from the island of Bonaire 2 weeks ago and had a great trip down there.
Yeah, I bet. That's so exciting. So for folks who are newer to scuba diving, do you have to be at a certain skill level to go on these trips, or is it beginners, or do you need to have kind of more advanced certificates for some of these trips?
Sure. No, great question. It does require you to be certified to scuba dive, and we teach those courses every month. It's a 2-weekend class. But as far as any specialty skills, we'll teach those to you if they're required during the trip. So, for instance, when we did this trip in Bonaire, there's a famous shipwreck that's quite deep, and you have to have your advanced open water training to be able to do that. So we taught the customers how to do that while we're there on vacation and certified them to do so.
That's so exciting. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So have you guys, so now it's been 3 years and you've added the zip line and the dive shop. Are you guys just crazy busy? I'm sure.
We are. Yep. I feel like my hairline has been receding quite a bit. I've been threatening just to shave it off so I stop obsessing over it. So we are absolutely busy. We fortunately have a crew. Most of our kids that work for us are coming back now for their 4th season, and my wife, Krista, and I have been fortunate enough to be able to pass on a lot of these responsibilities to these kids. Some of them started for us when they were 16, 17. Now they're in college, and they're coming back knowing exactly what needs to happen. So without our crew, now that we're this big, we wouldn't be able to do it. So this summer we're going to have 34 full-time employees, and we're going to be leaning on a lot of these young adults to manage the kayaking, the ziplining, and allow us to focus more on the dive shop.
That's awesome. So your wife I know you were doing kind of guided kayak tours prior, but does your wife have an outdoor rec background too?
My wife is the glue that keeps the entire operation together. She makes me come do the public appearances, but those that know us know that I'm just a bobblehead, and my wife is the true genius to the entire experiment. That is AWOL Adventure Sports. So her experience comes from actually from the restaurant industry. Oh. And she was the general manager for a large restaurant here in Twin Falls for quite a few years. And she walked away from that when we had this opportunity. And it's incredible how what she learned on the job, being able to handle 34 full-time employees and the payroll and our taxes and absolutely everything that you don't see in the front end, she handles. So for me, I just hand her piles with a smile and thank her and go back to bobbling my head.
Well, I know when people start businesses, sometimes it's all the back office stuff that's the intimidating part, like taxes and payroll and HR and all that stuff that people get scared about doing. Like they're passionate about something, but no one else is passionate about doing bookkeeping.
Yeah.
And so it's nice that you guys are kind of a team that one has the strengths and the other one helps with the other side of things.
We are. There are definitely strengths on both sides. And, I find myself the few times that I have to do some paperwork or some that requires me to do it and I'm frustrated and overwhelmed, I find myself thinking, oh my goodness, if I ever lost my wife or if she ever left me, this is the end. Everything ends here. Because it does take teamwork, she wouldn't come do a podcast. That's for sure. She makes me come do the podcast.
Well, I'm glad that there's one of you that would.
Yeah, and I'm nervous enough as it is. But it is great. I'm really blessed with what I have, and the teamwork. And it seems that both of our life experiences have helped lead up to this. The weird nuanced things that you experience that you think, okay, that was part of this job and, or this job or whatever it might be, all come to fruition, when you put it together. You don't realize the entire trip, or your entire time floundering through life that you are building up to something. If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, it seems to fall into place eventually.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I think good advice for people who are like maybe not in their dream job, but they're doing something else that's hopefully building on their experiences and will lead them to where they want to go.
Yeah, I have to laugh when I don't laugh, and I'm honored when people say it, but when people ask me business advice or they mention that, I'm in a mentor position for them for wanting to get into a business, I have to laugh to myself thinking, I still have no idea what I'm doing. and here's someone asking my advice. But yeah, we're having fun with it. I just hope that my mistakes as we move forward don't cost too much. I know I'm going to make mistakes. I know we're going to mess up, and I just cross my fingers that it'll be a cheap mistake as we go. Yeah,
that's part of life, though.
It is, absolutely.
So when you were young and you got into doing guided tours and things like that, what got you into that when you were young? How did you start in that field?
Yeah, it started. I was dating this young lady whose family was going on vacation, and they were all scuba divers, and they said to go on vacation with us, you have to be a scuba diver. So her family marched me into our local dive shop here in Twin Falls, which I didn't know existed. And
yeah, people might be surprised that in the middle of the desert you can learn how to scuba dive.
No, they are every time. And people come into our dive shop every day and for their first time, and the first thing they say is, there's a scuba diving shop in Idaho? You do this here? So I was just as surprised when we went into that shop, and her family put me through the dive class. We went on vacation. I was hooked from there. I broke up with that girl, unfortunately. And
fortunately, because you found a new awesome path, right?
Well, the story's not done yet.
Oh, no.
So I traveled, went to a bunch of countries and taught scuba diving and got into doing kayak guided tours down in California. And when I came back to Idaho, I married that girl.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so that's my wife, Krista, and it was her family that first got us into scuba diving. So, like I said, I've just been blessed and for everything to be able to come full circle has been incredible.
Well, so when you started that story, and I was like, well, that seems like a really cool family to
really cool family.
Yeah. And then it didn't work out. And I was like, oh, well, that's sad. And then it did work out.
It did work out. Yeah. So I went out and gained a bunch of experience and, went from a beginner diver to instructor and came back here. So.
That's awesome. So there's a lot of sports that you guys specialize in, whether it's the kayaking or the ziplining or the diving. What's something that somebody, if they've never done any of those as sports and they're thinking it sounds like a lot of fun, what's something that they need to have kind of as a foundation for? I'm certainly, scuba diving, you have to be a decent swimmer, but is there anything else that people should kind of be prepared for if they're starting to learn some of those sports?
Sure. No, that's a great question. You don't have to be knowledgeable or versed in any, any specific type of abilities or capabilities or anything like that to do any of those sports. And we say in scuba diving, you don't have to be a good swimmer. You just have to be a good sinker. And if you're not a good sinker, then we just put more lead on you and we'll get you to the bottom. With the zip lining, it's a blast. And again, it doesn't take any kind of special abilities, unique abilities to be able to do it. We hook you into the lines, you go for the ride, scream your head off, and we unhook you at the other end. And for kayaking, we purposefully have in our fleet beginner style, wide body, very stable kayaks. The only people that don't like our kayaks for rental are those that are very versed in kayaking, and typically those individuals will have their own kayaks. But yeah, so everything is based for the beginner. For those people that are visiting Idaho, and if they only had, one day or one thing to choose from, I always have to tell them to go with the kayaking, because what our canyon has to offer is world renowned and it is very unique, and just absolutely beautiful. And so if they, so if I had to say something for someone out of town, I would say definitely go kayaking up the Snake River Canyon. Our zip line is incredible, but there's zip lines all over the place. Don't get me wrong, it is fun. I wouldn't ever want to turn someone away from it. But when people ask that question, we only have one afternoon, I say, here's a paddle and jacket. You need to experience this. And we keep track of the individuals down there. Last summer, we had over 12,000 individuals go kayaking.
Wow.
Over 12,000 rentals, over 15,000 individuals out on the river. And we had tourists from 34 countries come down. And, so we got to talk to people from around the world. And a lot of them typically are either coming from or going to Yellowstone. And quite often they'll make the remarks that this was one of the highlights of their trip, being able to be down there in the canyon.
That's awesome. Is there a minimum age to do some of those, the zip lining or the kayaking? There
is, yeah. On the zip line, it's either 4 years old or 50 pounds.
Okay.
Either or. And with the kayaking, to be able to pilot your own kayak, as long as it's a slow water year. So for instance, we're going to have another high water year like we did 2 years ago. And the river
makes for good waterfalls.
Makes for incredible waterfalls. But unfortunately, it does limit us for our little kids piloting their own craft down there. So while it is high water, we'll allow 16 and up to pilot their own boats. And children under 16 can be in kayaks with adults.
Oh, great. So you've got double.
Absolutely. And we have kayaks that'll fit newborns. So we'll have families that'll take 1 and 2 year olds and under on tandem or double kayaks with them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So during the spring, when the flow is higher, we'll have to limit that. But come June, the end of June, when they start shutting down the falls for irrigation, it'll be 10 and up can pilot their own boats out there.
That's awesome. I imagine that's a really exciting experience for a young kid who maybe has never kayaked, to be there in the canyon and all the waterfalls and go under the bridge when the base jumpers are jumping, and it's pretty exciting. It
is incredible. I love going to work every day. Driving down into the canyon, saying this is my office is just the most rewarding experience. I love it because we do have something beautiful, and 20 years ago, 25 years ago, you go down there and there's hardly anyone, and when the park was created in 96. The only traffic you would see down there typically would be golfers and fishermen. And, now it's kind of turned into our, I guess, a second to Shoshone Falls themselves and the Lookout. It's become the prime spot for tourism here in the area.
Yeah, it's quite a destination, the canyon.
It is.
Yeah. So when you guys aren't in the canyon working, what are some of your favorite things you guys like to do as a family?
So in the wintertime, we do a lot of bowling.
Really?
Yeah.
That was unexpected.
No, my family, we like to go bowling. In fact, we were just bowling on Sunday, and it's something that we love to do. It's a lot of fun.
How old are your kids?
My sons are 5 and 11. 5 and 11. And, it just seems at that age, sports never end. And so right now we are going through, along with all the other parents of Southern Idaho, the wonder of spring soccer.
It's huge here.
Oh, yeah. Spring soccer is huge. And you don't know one day from the next, from practice to the game, if you're going to be wearing shorts and a T-shirt or a thick parka and a blanket for your games. And so we're constantly busy with soccer and basketball and baseball and swimming and all that fun stuff. And, we couldn't have a better job, because with our position, our sons, they live in the dive shop. They live down at the kayak rental kiosk all summer long. And we're fortunate enough to be able to take them on a lot of these dive trips with us.
Your kids dive too?
They do. Our oldest son does.
Yeah.
He's a scuba diver. And the young one, he is unofficially going to start diving in the pool very soon. Yeah.
So that's going to be my next question about where you start. For those still wondering where you can scuba dive in the desert, how do you guys do that here?
Sure. Yeah. So we teach all of our pool sessions, most of our pool sessions we teach out of Banbury Hot Springs. And you were asking earlier things that we love to do. If we're not bowling, we're swimming. Our family's in the water all the time. And our favorite place to go swimming is Banbury Hot Springs. It's right down next to the river. And they also do kayak rentals where you can get up to Blue Heart Springs.
Oh, yeah.
Right from behind their pool. And just the fact that they empty it every night and it's all geothermal water and, so there's no chemicals in it at all. We love going out there. And so when you learn how to scuba dive in the area, even in the wintertime, it can be freezing cold outside and we'll be in a 98-degree pool, with the snow falling. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. And that's where you learn the majority of your skills is in the pool. And then in the wintertime, it's just too cold to be diving here in Twin. So we travel down to just outside Park City, Utah, where we dive in a geothermal cave. Oh. And it's a large cavern that's almost 70 feet deep, and the geothermal water in there is 95 degrees. And so that's the only place we can comfortably teach scuba diving in the wintertime. In the spring and fall, when our local lakes are still just a little bit cold or too cold for beginners, we'll travel down to Wendover, Nevada, and dive a large geothermal lake down there. And then in the summertime and the early fall, we dive in good old Durkee's Lake right here in Twin Falls, Idaho. And over the last 15 years of doing diving, I've logged well over 500 dives in Durkee's Lake. And I love diving out there. A lot of people don't realize that Durkee's Lake 100 years ago was a homestead. And it was a peach and apple orchard. Oh. So where the lake lies now, where all the trees were and the original homestead. So when we go scuba diving on the bottom of Durkee's Lake, we can find the tree stumps from the old orchard, and then you can do an east-west heading, and every 30 feet or so, you'll find another tree stump from the original homestead down there. Yeah.
So you're learning to scuba dive and getting like a history tour.
Yeah, and you get a little bit of, you do exactly. You get a little bit of a history tour down there, and that's something that very few people get to see. Thousands of people, tens of thousands, go to Durkee's every summer. But very, very select few get to see what's on the bottom of it.
Yeah, I've been out there several times, and I had no idea that was under the water. That's amazing.
Yeah, we have platforms down there. We have a couple of sunken rowboats. Cool. We have an underwater peak performance buoyancy course. So right in front of you are about a half a dozen hula hoops and triangles that are all floating in midwater. Yeah.
Really?
For us to do training out there with.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So for someone who came here, moved away, came back, you've had an opportunity to see a lot of different places, and certainly through your travels from diving have seen a lot of different places. What would you say makes Southern Idaho special for someone who hasn't been here, or maybe who's thinking about moving here but doesn't really know why they should consider Southern Idaho?
Sure. Yeah. The thing that whenever I leave and I come back, even if it's for a short trip, the first thing that I always notice about our home is the sincere hospitality from just random people. If it's, and I'm talking about the little things like waving you through a stoplight, letting you in on traffic, holding doors open, actually conversing with your fellow human, in random situations. And that's what always, it doesn't take me off guard per se, because I'm used to it, coming back home, but it's definitely noticeable when you come back here that even though Twin Falls is growing and I love that we're growing, I absolutely love the growth that's happening to Twin, but even with that, there is still that small town, hometown, help your neighbors kind of feel that you don't necessarily get in other parts of the world or other parts of our own country for that.
Yeah, that's for sure. And that's something I've heard time and time again about how friendly the Magic Valley is. And I think if you haven't been here to experience it, you might think, well, my town's friendly. But if you haven't been here and just really experience it, it's different.
It is, and there's the ongoing joke, as I said at the onset of this interview, I don't tell people I'm from California, and we joke around with, we don't want the secret to be out Idaho, we wanted to keep that hometown feel. Yet when people do move here, they are, assimilated into the community so quickly and welcomed. There isn't an outsider, type mentality here, and it's great, because we are growing and we're becoming a larger community, and it seems like we're on a good path as a region.
Yeah, and I think you're definitely right. There's an ongoing joke that we don't want people to move here, but I think when people do actually decide to move here or even just come here for a visit, I think people are just so happy that people found beauty in where we love to be here, and so then they embrace them, and it's like they've been here all along. I think we're very welcoming to people who also appreciate the beauty of Southern Idaho. Right.
No, absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head with that. When they move here, we welcome them because we know why they moved here, and it's almost a kind of a, well, it's about time that you figured it out, welcome. Yeah. Don't tell anyone else.
Exactly.
Yeah, kind of thing. It's a fun joke, and it's been an ongoing joke for a very long time.
That's awesome. So what about your wife? What does she like to do? I know you guys said bowling. Is there anything that she really loves to do when she's not busy with the shop?
Yeah, my wife is a very avid diver as well. She does not like diving in the cold muck that we enjoy up here in Idaho. So that at least ensures that we go on a couple of trips a year so she can go diving as well. My wife just absolutely enjoys being a mother. I think is her highlight, and raising those boys and being with those boys all the time, I think is what she cherishes the most. If she was here, I think that's what she would say. Is that's her favorite thing to do. Mom needs to take a break every once in a while and get out, and and so we'll take breaks and we'll go kayaking or paddle boarding when we can, but yeah.
Well, and just I think so special that you guys have been able to craft a life where you guys can work your passion, the things you love to do, and do it all as a family, and the boys getting to be in the dive shop and going on these trips with you. And I think that's just really special, and I think that's really wonderful you guys have been able to make that life for yourselves.
Yeah, we are very blessed and thankful for it. I recognize every day how lucky I am, and a lot of it is just blind, dumb luck. But we say at AWOL that we facilitate happiness, and even if we're having a bad day, we keep a smile on our face because we're there to to facilitate someone doing something typically for their first time in their life on any one of the fronts, the kayaking, zipline, or scuba diving, and so we always have to keep that in perspective.
Do you guys also rent paddle boards?
We do. We have rigid boards down in the canyon, and then we have inflatable boards at our shop to rent if you're wanting to go to any other stretches. And there's quite a few gorgeous stretches of water in this area. Some of them can only be floated or navigated at different times of the year. But there's a lot of great small canyons and small creeks and whatnot that you can go paddle.
What are some of the top highlights for ones that if people wanted to explore some other stretches to go kayaking or paddleboarding?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, definitely, Centennial Park and going up to even the Pillar Falls, being able to see the base jumpers. In the late summer, being able to go up to the base of Shoshone is breathtaking. So aside from that, my second favorite place to go kayaking, paddleboarding is down in the Hagerman area. And, we go kayaking and scuba diving up in the Blue Heart Springs. It's cold. It's 52 degrees, but in the middle of August, it's refreshing to be able to jump in there after a mile-long paddle. And everything about that whole Hagerman area, the different springs, it's not coming to mind. Oh, Box Canyon. Being able to snorkel down there and swim Box Canyon is great. A spot that I have not done yet, and I've been meaning to do it for years, I'm hopefully going to do it this spring, is Salmon Falls Creek.
I haven't heard of that one.
Creek. Yeah. You start just south of Jackpot, and you kayak north, right across the Idaho border is where the takeout is. And I've been told, and I've seen the pictures of just phenomenal canyons, just really steep walled canyons and beautiful scenery out there.
There's just so much to explore that even someone whose job it is to be out there exploring hasn't seen. I mean, you can spend your whole life exploring different nooks.
You can,
here.
Absolutely, and we take advantage of it whenever we can. And if someone comes in and says something about a spot, then we'll try to get out there and check it out. That's our mission for this summer this spring, because Salmon Falls Creek can only be it's only navigable for a few weeks every spring before the water's too low.
So I know that weather-wise it may not be as nice to be on the river in the wintertime as it is in the summertime, but do you have people out there kayaking most of the year?
Yeah. We do. The kayaking, it does die off by November, and we'll have some people go out before February, but typically by about March we'll have some people go out. Locals, not so much. Locals will wait until the nice weather, but for those people that are just coming through town and they'll never be back, we'll facilitate them. We'll take kayaks down there for them to check it out. The Zipline runs year-round, and we'll do a lot of tours for family from out of town in Thanksgiving, Christmas time. And with the kayaks, we don't question it. Someone wants to go out there and bundle up, we'll get the kayaks for them. And but no, to answer that question, most people, a majority of it happens Memorial Day to Labor Day. And this last season was different from the previous years because we had a lot of inquiry from Boise area or Salt Lake area. Out of towners were calling in advance or booking in advance, and so we're seeing an uptick in the tourists and the out of towners coming here specifically to go kayaking.
That's awesome. That was kind of on my mind too. Is if after over the 3 years, if you're starting to see a broader range of folks coming in. I know you've got, I think you said 34 countries. Yeah. And so, but it's awesome that you're starting to see more people booking ahead of time and not just stumbling upon it when they get here.
Yeah, we are. Just today, we have a small Christian high school from Nampa that is heard about us, and they brought their senior class down, and they're ziplining and kayaking this afternoon.
Oh, awesome.
And I think last time I checked, it was 58 degrees maybe outside today.
It's sunny, though.
It's sunny. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful outside, and they're out there having a blast as we speak.
Yeah.
So the word is definitely getting out there, and for people to call ahead just to make sure that we're open, that we have boats and time slots on the Zipline available, it has been a change that we've seen this last year.
That's awesome. So any other secret spots in the area that you want to share with somebody who's maybe thinking about making a trip out here or making a move out here? it can be places to eat or just fun things to do.
Sure. Yeah. People ask us all the time where they need to go eat at, and there's two spots in particular that we love to send people. The first one was one of your interviews, Shane Smith with the Twin Falls Sandwich Company. We love sending people down there for, not only does he have great food, but the ambiance, and the whole Main Street thing, and the revitalization that they're doing down there is great. My personal favorite spot in Twin is the Anchor. I absolutely love, Chris Hengel and his staff, and the Anchor Bistro down there is awesome. And we know if we send any of our customers to either of those spots, that they're not going to be walking away disappointed. As far as food, and obviously you have to do Shoshone Falls. We'll tell customers, I just told a gentleman this morning, he thought it was just a little too cold to go kayaking with his daughters. You have to go see Shoshone. Another spot I like to send people, if they're out for an adventure, something off the grid, is the Hermit Cave up in the South Hills.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know about it. It's right before you take the turn or right before you pull off the road for. Oh, now I can't remember the name of the waterfall that's up there.
Is it Ross Falls?
Ross Falls, yeah. Just a few hundred yards before you turn off for Ross Falls, on that same west side of the road, you can pull over and walk up a small path, and there is a hermit cave up there. And the legend goes, I don't have any historical documentation on it, but growing up, the legend was that it was a gentleman that lived in there at the turn of the century that was doing the sheep herding sort of thing with the Basque back in there. And it's neat. It's incredible to see where he had hand carved out, a small bed, a small kitchen area, and cooking area. Yeah, it's a random cave in the side of a hill.
That's amazing. Those are the secret spots that we're excited to find.
And so if someone is asking for that specifically, and when you see them, the type of people that, you could send them out on an adventure. There's no signs for this. There's no, it's not on a map. And you're hoping that they'll find it. A Balanced Rock is another really fun one, and a great place to go kayaking, paddle boarding right there in the Balanced Rock Park. You can get back into some really neat canyons from there. Yeah,
that's awesome. And the Anchor, for folks who haven't been there, their outdoor patio is just really, it's nice to hang out there like on a summer night and have a few drinks, and their fries are super yummy, and they just have really good food. Yeah. I'm
going to have to go to the Anchor after we're done with this conversation. It is a great place. That and the Twin Falls Sandwich Company are always the top ones that we recommend to people. And, if they're looking for the ambiance of the canyon, and we'll send them to Canyon Crest and or Elevation, and if they're for dinner, something like that, in an event, we always make sure to send them over to those restaurants.
Yeah, we're pretty lucky. We've got several places depending on what people are looking for, kind of the day they're having. If they want to rough it and have something that's casual and they can cake with them, that they have those options. But if they want something fancier too and see the canyon the whole time, there's all those options too. Yeah,
absolutely. And and my last one, I guess for breakfast, I would have to say Norm's and or the Buffalo are two of the highlights for our local restaurant.
The Buffalo is super popular because I went there and there was like a line out the door waiting to get in there.
Yeah, and that could be on a random Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great spots. So we like to point people in those directions, to the smaller local places.
Yeah. So you guys have done a lot of expansion in these first 3 years. Is there anything that we should be watching for on the horizon? Or are you guys good with what you have on your plate right now?
Yeah, so it is a good thing that my wife isn't here. I'd be getting an elbow in the ribs saying that we are comfortable and content with where we're at. No, right now our plate is full, and our seasons just seem to get busier sooner every year. And what we're hoping for someday down the road, we would like to expand that Zipline and do a longer course, take advantage of the canyon that we have at some point. And then we would also like to start adding guided tours, boat tours on the canyon we get a lot of requests from individuals that are, the grandmas and grandpas and or the little kids sort of thing, that would love to go up and go under the bridge or go up to the pillars. And so we'd like to facilitate that. So someday down the road.
Yeah. I won't hold you to a timeline.
Yes, exactly. There is no timeline on this. It is all in my head. But yeah, I would like to see us expand at some point. Absolutely.
Well, that's awesome. Well, we're just so excited of all the cool things you've already put together, because that really just adds to things that people who live here can, take advantage of, and people who are visiting. It just makes it so wonderful to have all these different ways to experience the canyon in Southern Idaho. So that's really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we agree.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciated you stopping by and sharing all the things that you love about Southern Idaho and all the awesome things you're doing at AWOL.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it, Connie. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thanks for listening to Secrets Out Idaho. You can follow Southern Idaho Economic Development on social media or visit southernidaho.org to learn more. Please take a moment to leave a rating and review and subscribe so you can be the first to hear more Secrets Out Idaho. Until next time.